The Reconstruction and Manifest Destiny time periods overlap, but I rarely hear it stated that plainly in history. The underlying ideology of westward expansion, American exceptionalism, and the white man's God-given right for exploration existed from about 1803 and 1890 or 1900. And the Civil War lasted from 1861 to 65, with Reconstruction following it from 1865 to 1877. That means that our country's leaders were rebuilding with manifest destiny front in mind and creating policies governing Black bodies under the influence of ideas that white men were free to explore and exploit whatever and whomever they wanted to. Before we go back and dig deeper into specific events and policies, I want to emphasize that the year 1900 was not that long ago. I met my great-grandfather, my grandma's dad, who was born in the early 1920s. His parents would have been born under that same manifest destiny ideology. At the same time, my other grandfather was heading north to Chicago from Arkansas in search of work and attempting to escape the sharecropping system in the wake of Reconstruction. I'm only 29, and I have held the hands and conversations with people who were only one generation removed from that period. That means that folks older than me would have been talking to folks and in community with folks who were more connected to that time period. And because of that, I honestly don't think that Manifest Destiny ever truly died. As we continue to learn how this concept continues to live on in Midwestern rural communities, let's go back and revisit Reconstruction. So when we were in the Civil War, 1861 to 65, President Abraham Lincoln did not make the abolition of slavery a goal of the Civil War. However, the enslaved people and African Americans serving in the Union pushed that issue to the forefront and asserted that they wanted freedom. This is contrary to the Southern folks who argued that enslaved folks were happy and content to live in bondage. The Emancipation Proclamation freed 3 million enslaved folks in 1863, but the last of the enslaved people were not free until 1865, when a Union general announced to the enslaved folks in Galveston, Texas, that they had their freedom. We commemorate this day, June 19th, with the holiday Juneteenth. Reconstruction was started under President Lincoln, but he was assassinated in April of 1865, just 3 days after suggesting that free Black folks in Louisiana should be able to vote. I want to stop there and remind y'all that is how important voting is. President Andrew Johnson then came to power, who believed very heavily in states' rights. He was very lenient on Southern states. Southern states are required to uphold the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery, swear loyalty to the Union, and pay off war debt. But other than that, they were largely free to rebuild themselves. In 1865 to 1866, with this leniency, Southern states enacted a series of Black codes that were used to restrict the rights and liberties of newly freed Black folks, which included labor and employment laws that forced Black men to prove they were employed or be arrested for vagrancy and forced into labor, legal and civil barriers preventing freedmen from serving on juries, testifying against white people, or owning firearms. Some states even had special separate judicial systems for Black folks. Apprenticeship laws allowed orphans or young Black children to be rented out to plantation owners. Pig laws unfairly charged minor offenses with harsh fines and forced labor if they were not able to pay those fines. Occupation limits prevented free Black folks from working certain jobs or requiring a special tax to do so. The Reconstruction Act of 1867 required states to ratify the 14th Amendment, expanded the definition of citizenship, and granted equal protection to formerly enslaved folks. And the 15th Amendment, which guaranteed a citizen's right to vote, to be denied based on race, color, or conditions of servitude. This did not apply to women, and women would not have the right to vote for several more decades to come. This also allowed federal troops to dispatch into southern states to enforce Reconstruction. By 1870, all former Confederate states had re-entered the Union, but not long after, Reconstruction efforts ultimately failed. By 1877, troops were withdrawn from southern states as the Ku Klux Klan and other white supremacist organizations targeted Republican leaders and Black organizers. Mind you, this is not the same Republican Party that we see and know of today. However, in the next video, we are going to look more closely at this time period in the greater St. Louis area, and we will talk about what was happening from the Dred Scott Supreme Court case in 1857, which was a factor that led to the Civil War, through Reconstruction to 1917 during the East St. Louis race riots and massacre of thousands of Black folks. Stay with me, and thank you for joining me on this journey as we discuss how race and religion play a role in the way rural communities in the Midwest look and behave today, and what we can do to start really turning things around and creating the world that we want to see. Thank you.